Welcome to another edition of the Giants Huddle podcast, the Baldy Breakdown edition. It's all presented by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. Coming to you from the Hackensack Marine Hill podcast studio. Keep getting better. I am John Schmeelk. Jay's heads up today. We're going to do a recap of the Raiders game, and we also took a look ahead at what's going to happen in the offseason, but it was so good, and we did a long one too, so we're going to save that for next week's episode. So you're going to hear me reference in the beginning of this that we'll talk about it later in the show. Well, we do. It's just not going to air until after the final game next week when we look ahead to what this offseason might look like for the New York Football Giants. Baldy, what's going on, man? How are you?
John, I'm doing good, man. Happy holidays to you. I'm in a good spot. We're at the finish line here. So we're all kind of looking around the playoff seedings and, the schedule this week and trying to figure out, where we're all going and what we got to do here.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Giants will not be talking about playoff schedules or seedings. They've been eliminated for a while now. But, Baldy, they finally broke their 9-game losing streak this weekend against the Las Vegas Raiders, a game that they were favored in, especially given who the Raiders decided not to play in this game. The Giants certainly had the more talented team, and I thought they just went out there in all three phases and showed they were the better team, and they played kind of no-nonsense, matter-of-fact football, got a couple of takeaways, special teams touchdown, and they had a nice convincing victory.
Completely. And we have seen pieces of that throughout the year, John, where they played really well for 3.5 quarters against Denver and other teams, and they couldn't put teams away. Yesterday, they just took care of business, and they look like a good football team. Now, the Raiders are a mess, and they've got, Max Crosby's not out there, whatever. Regardless, you still got to go out there and play. And I thought the execution was really crisp. Obviously, Wan'Dale had a great day, one of his best days as a pro, and Jaxson Dart, whether it was passing the ball to a variety of receivers or design runs or scrambles, he was on top of his games, and the defense did their job. They look like a talented defense, especially on the defensive front. So there was a lot of things that showed up and popped yesterday.
Yeah, why don't we start with the offense, Baldy, and, Jaxson Dart. I thought he just did a good job of taking what the defense gave him. I thought he got the ball out a little bit quicker than he has the last few weeks. A lot of those quick, short passes to Wan'Dale Robinson. And frankly, he didn't have to make any tough passes because guys were just open all over the field. He found them, and he got them the ball quickly.
Yeah, he did. The passes you're talking about to Wan'Dale, he had 4 of them, as a matter of fact. They're all gained like 6 or 7 yards, but they're just little stick routes and little option routes. I mean, he really sits down where if there's softness in his zone, if it's man, he might take it to the out. But I thought Jaxson, sometimes those are all timing routes, but they're just drive starters. You get yourself 6 yards, you're in positive, it's a positive gain. Wan'Dale was excellent at it. And then, a couple other ones where, he was good after the catch. But I just felt like you need those type of plays built into the offense. It's an easy completion. You stay on rhythm. You stay positive. You never get behind the sticks. And, the penalties were way, way down. A couple of false starts by Illuminar. But for the most part, they played really well up front. And Jaxson Dart, he looked like a guy that you want to build your offense around.
Yeah, look, talking to Tiki postgame on those Illuminar false starts, Baldy, he said, look, that definitely has to do with the fact that John Michael Schmitz isn't there and they're in silent count with a new center, and they just didn't have that timing quite down yet.
No, that can happen. There's no doubt. You're relying on the center to, certain things with the ball and, when the count is going. And, your Schlottman's in there, and he had a good game. But there is a different rhythm. And you can see that Jermaine, it wasn't like a bad false start. He was kind of rolling out, where you could see it happened a little slower than he thought. He was trying to slow himself down. And that's all that was.
No question about it. You mentioned Wan'Dale Robinson gets over 1,000 yards for the season, first 1,000-yard year. We'll talk about his potential future a little bit later. But overall, he's had a really good year, Baldy. He worked outside a lot more with the Giants leaning into so much 12 personnel. Mm-hmm. But this game, they went back to 11 personnel, and he kind of reprised his old kind of slot role where he's been a lot.
Well, the big thing is, he's great at those underneath routes, whether it's, the pivot routes or, some of the stick nods. Like, he's just good at separating, and he's got the quickness to do it. And he just gives the quarterback a good target. The deep over route for 37 yards, I mean, it's just off play action. But, and then, he had they ran just a little man beater inside when he was in that slot and, popped it for 17 yards on the outside. But, you could just tell that there's a rhythm, that there's a timing that he shares with Jaxson Dart. And that's all receivers want to do, is build that rhythm and timing and trust with the quarterback. And that's been going on for most of the year, but it really popped yesterday against the Raiders.
And then on the offensive line, Baldy, we've seen it before when Andrew Thomas hasn't played, this offensive line has fallen apart, but that didn't happen on Sunday afternoon. Marcus Bowe stepped in there. Was he perfect? No. Malcolm Kuntz gave him some trouble on some of these plays, used his quickness to get around the edge on him. But overall, I think you have to be pretty satisfied with what Bowe gave you starting at left tackle.
He gave you a lot more good than bad. There
Yep.
was a couple pass rushers he'd like to have back where he could finish a little bit better, stay attached to Kuntz in a couple situations. Ran a toss crack, just ran the safety over. He just punked him out there, and you love to see that physicality.
That was on the Singletary 29-yard run, right? I think, right?
29-yard,
yeah.
Yep. I mean, everybody runs that play. Tackle gets a chance to get ahead of steam out there. But, he plays the game with I said it in preseason. He plays the game with a lot of confidence. He doesn't look like a rookie that hadn't played much out there. And you just wonder, honestly, when you watch him play, because he knows how to play, is there a place on the line for him? Is it inside? Is it, outside? Is it just a reserve role right now? Like, I feel like he could step in and either upgrade a position or certainly keep it status quo outside of, what Andrew's abilities are. But you could play him in 4 different positions. And I'm not so sure he couldn't play center if he had to. I feel like you either can teach that guy to be the swing man and the first guy off the bench, or let him challenge for one of the positions out there.
And we could have that conversation about Illuminor in the second half of the show, Baldy. But I guess just to stick on him for a second, do you see guard skills with him, or do you see more tackle skills with him?
Well, he's built more like a guard, just looking at him. Now, he can play tackle because his feet are good, and he's got a good punch, and he knows how to play tackle. But I feel like inside, I think he's got real natural power. And you want to see that from your guard play. You want to see guys that can, come off the ball, roll your hips, and move people up front, especially the size of the defensive tackles in this league. And I feel like he's got a lot of that type of ability.
No, I think he's shown a lot. I think, and right side, left side, he's played both sides. I think you like that.
Yeah.
So certainly, I think you've liked what you've seen from him so far this year. All right, Baldy, let's jump over to the defensive side of the ball. Another big game for Abdul Carter. We last spoke at the bye, and you talked about how, all right, he came on a little bit. Let's cut out the nonsense. The nonsense has been gone over the past 4 weeks, and man, he's just a pressure machine. He's starting to win off of the right tackle a little bit, but he's really just eating up these interior linemen, Baldy, getting him in these one-on-one situations, using his quickness, his spin moves, and they just have not been able to block him one-on-one.
He's got at least a half a sack now in 4 straight games. He's got 10 quarterback hits in the last 4 games. The numbers are there, but you don't have to look at the numbers. You just have to watch him play. Like, he's beating tackles. If he lines up over the guard, they're running twist stunts with Burnsy or running fire zone X's with Burns inside, and Burns is coming free. He forced a holding call yesterday, that never gets recorded in any kind of stats, but you're backing up. You take away a good gain on 3rd and 13 and you back him up 10 yards. Those things add up. But it's all phases. It's him chasing from the backside in the run game right now. It's the tackle for losses. Like, he's playing ball on the other side of the line of scrimmage right now. And what we thought he was coming out of Penn State is what he looks like right now. And it's a shame that we're down to 1 game left, because I have a feeling he could put up some really good numbers. It takes guys a while to figure everything out. Professionalism, maybe you got to get called out in the carpet by different people, whatever. But I feel like he's figuring it out right here at the end of the season. And I wouldn't even be surprised, next week for him to have another really good game and finish strong.
Yeah, against a young Cowboys offensive line that has played well at times this year. So that'll be a good challenge for him heading into next week. And then Brian Burns, Baldy, he should have had 2.5 sacks. I'm surprised they didn't call Geno.
He's got Geno down. I don't know what that is. Like, you just can't just throw the ball out of your hand and not get a sack. I mean, that should have been a sack on that play, John.
I'm with you. But again, he talked to Paul Dottino, my colleague here, after the game, and he talked to Paul about how important it was for him to close the season strong and continue his consistent play. And again, we saw it. One on the outside. You talked about that little looper play that he had with, crossing with Carter on the blitz to get the free runner at the quarterback. He just keeps playing high-level football, and he deserves it. I hope he gets an all-pro nod, Baldy, because he's played at that level all year.
There's no question. I hope it's not, sometimes these things are popularity contests. Yeah. But if you just watch the 16 games that Brian Burns has started, he's been a factor in every game. Even in the first play yesterday, he takes Ashton Genty for a 2-yard loss on the first play. He swims the tackle, flattens down the line of scrimmage, and takes down Genty. who had a monster game the week before. All the things are adding up, right? Whether it's the forced fumbles, the quarterback hits, the tackle for losses, the passes defense, batting balls down, the sacks. Like, it's just all phases of the game. And, he plays a true outside linebacker. He's dropping into coverage. He's in the flat. It's not just, defensive end rushing the passer getting 16 and a half sacks. I mean, he's doing a lot of other things within the framework of the defense and still getting those kind of numbers, which, when you end the year and you're basically a sack a game, and that's what it comes out to, that's one aspect of it. But I just feel his energy level, and then you're around him a lot, John. Anybody that's around Brian Burns, he loves the game of football, and it shows. Because you could easily be shutting this thing down like some guys are in this league. But, he's played through injuries. He's played through being banged up. The game's important to him, and he loves the game. He loves talking about it. He loves playing it. He loves probably preparing for it during the week. He loves, putting a game plan together for his opponents, and it shows.
I think it's important to know who the opponents have been the last couple of weeks, and that's a factor here. But what do you think of the adjustments that Charlie Bolin have slowly kind of integrated into the defense now that he's been in that chair for more than a month?
Well, we haven't seen that crossfire stunt that they ran yesterday from Charlie. I mean, it's good. It's a good changeup. Three-man run front, and you're running a little twist right there with Abdul and Burnsley. We saw them on the same side running some exit stunts and Texas stunts with each other. I think the way that they're keeping both those guys on the field together like that, either on the same side or depending on the down and distance, I think they're moving them around quite a bit. I thought, obviously, Okereke had a great game yesterday.
Yeah.
But I thought he's been a lot more active. I think there's been a stretch where we didn't really talk about him much during some of these games. But I think he's been really active the last few weeks.
Yeah, and then Dane Belton with a nice play, too. I think that was some kind of weird inverted cover, too, and Belton was almost playing
he read it perfectly.
The Tampa 2 defender in the middle, and he jumped that route real nice.
No, Dane Belton, when he gets the opportunity to play, I mean, he's always been great on special teams, but when he gets a chance to play in the secondary, he usually shows up. He's a good tackler. That was a great instinct, seeing that ball from Geno right there and jumping it like he did.
Yeah, no question about it. And Okereke with a nice pick earlier in the game as well. All right. Don't forget, folks, Giants Huddle Podcast is brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. From game day celebrations to your everyday financial needs, Big Blue fans can get the most out of every moment with Citizens. Learn more at citizensbank.com/Giants. All right, Baldy, let's look ahead now a little bit of the offseason. But before we do that, got to give Deonte Banks his pub here because he's had a rough year. You've been hard on him. We've been hard on him. But he really seems to have found the niche here as a kick returner. He's good at it.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, you got to give guys a chance to do different things and to see what they do. And sometimes just the return and what he did yesterday, just that, it builds your confidence. Like, I can contribute. Guys' confidence goes up and down. It goes in every sport. It goes in shooters of basketball and hitters of baseball. And players are no different. It doesn't matter where you get drafted. Everybody wants to play with supreme confidence. Not everybody does because they're not having success. But when you can get success in the return game like that makes all the difference in the world when you come off that field and everybody's patting you on the back for the first time in a long time. That can radiate into other parts of the game. And I thought defensively, he played pretty good yesterday on the outside.
That's Brian Baldinger. We thank him for joining us on the Giants Huddle Podcast, brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. From game day celebrations to your everyday financial needs, Big Blue gets the most out of every moment with Citizens. Learn more at citizensbank.com/Giants. As I mentioned, the second half of that conversation, talking about the offseason, that'll come your way on next week's edition of the Giants Huddle Podcast, the Baldy Breakdown edition, brought to you by Citizens. Thanks for joining us in the Hackensack Community Health Podcast Studio. Keep getting better. For Brian Baldinger, I'm John Schmeelk. We'll see you next time.